Most definitely, that's shocking. And we talked earlier in Take It 10 about misinformation, and that's a good example of egregious misinformation, very offensive to the royal family, to Charles, and to the country.
Meghan Markle thought she was building a glamorous empire with her American Riviera orchard brand. But Kris Jenner just flipped the script with one ruthless whisper: $16 million in debt. Overnight, Meghan went from Duchess turned entrepreneur to Hollywood cautionary tale, with insiders questioning how her empire could be crumbling so fast. The woman who once shook Buckingham Palace is now scrambling to save face in Beverly Hills. So the question is, did Kris Jenner just expose the truth Meghan never wanted the world to know? Kris Jenner's silent power play. You know, Kris Jenner doesn't waste her breath on public feuds. She doesn't have to. She's mastered the art of the whisper, and in Hollywood, whispers can kill faster than a front-page scandal. Word going around is that Kris didn't slam Meghan Markle outright when she showed up uninvited at her mansion. Instead, she let something far juicier slip through the cracks. That Meghan's shiny new lifestyle brand, American Riviera Orchard, isn't the success story Meghan wants people to believe. It's buried under a mountain of debt, reportedly around $16 million. And the second that little nugget made its way into industry conversations, Meghan's carefully crafted image as a duchess turned entrepreneur started unraveling. Here's why this hit so hard. In Hollywood, Kris isn't just another reality star, she's the strategist. She took a scandalous tape and turned it into a billion-dollar empire. She doesn't just build brands, she makes them bulletproof. So if Kris is the one quietly saying Meghan's company is drowning, people believe it. No matter how many glossy press releases Meghan's team puts out about sellout launches and exclusive products, those numbers start to look like smoke and mirrors when Kris Jenner's whisper is echoing through Beverly Hills dinner parties. It's not about whether the debt figure is even exact. It's about perception. And if Kris painted Meghan as a businesswoman who can't keep the lights on, that sticks harder than any headline.
Brands, one of the products that she's got. And I understand she sent it to a celebrity.
Well, she has sent it to about 50.
Some insiders claim Kris dropped the info casually, maybe over cocktails, maybe in a phone call to one of her media contacts. She doesn't need to go public. Her reputation does the heavy lifting. People in this town know that Kris's whispers aren't gossip, they're strategy. And the timing was brutal. Meghan's been trying to convince Hollywood she's more than a duchess chasing clout. She's pitched herself as a serious businesswoman, someone who could build a legacy brand, but one whisper from Kris, and suddenly she looks like someone fronting a failing company, throwing gift baskets around while the bills pile up in the background. And you can bet Kris knew exactly what she was doing. Think about it. Meghan allegedly shows up at Kris's gate without an invite, trying to muscle her way into the Kardashian circle. Kris doesn't throw a tantrum. She doesn't clap back on Instagram. She just drops one piece of information, and now Meghan looks desperate and broke. That's the kind of power play that only someone like Kris could pull off. It's like she's saying, "You want to play this game? Fine, but I play it better." Now, the gossip mill is eating it up. Some say Meghan is scrambling to do damage control, feeding stories to sympathetic outlets about her brand's growth and loyal customers. But the more she pushes those narratives, the faker they look. Hollywood can smell desperation, and thanks to Kris's whisper campaign, the scent is all over Meghan's brand. Suddenly, people who once might have invested or collaborated are pulling back, not wanting to attach themselves to a woman whose empire might already be sinking. The numbers Meghan didn't want you to see.
I think at the moment it's very insensitive what she's doing. King Charles is fighting for his life with cancer, so is Kate.
When Meghan Markle first launched her American Riviera Orchard brand, the spin was flawless. Instagram teasers, glossy photos of gift baskets, whispers of exclusivity. It all screamed luxury lifestyle empire in the making. But behind the pretty packaging, the numbers were already painting a very different picture. And according to Hollywood insiders, this is exactly the detail Kris Jenner let slip into the gossip stream. Meghan's brand, far from booming, is reportedly saddled with around $16 million in debt. That's not just a hiccup, it's a flashing red light that the empire Meghan's been building is shakier than anyone realized. Here's the scandalous part. Meghan's team has been selling the image of sellouts and overwhelming demand. Stories of 10,000 bottles gone in minutes circulated early on, but dig a little deeper and it starts to look like smoke and mirrors. Sources claim that the sales weren't individual buyers snapping up product. They were bulk orders, with each customer required to buy 3, 6, or even 12 bottles at once. That means those big numbers were padded, and once the hype cooled off, return customer rates barely hit the industry average. Translation: Meghan's wine isn't the must-have she hoped it would be. It's the kind of brand that looks good on Instagram, but doesn't move once it hits the shelves.
Yeah, I mean, there is something deliciously British about this sort of war of the jams. This is kind of whiff of the WI or the Village Show in some ways. But more seriously, you say absolutely she doesn't read the room. How tone deaf is this? Because this jam is incredibly expensive.
And debt in this range doesn't just come from slow sales. Running a luxury lifestyle brand means enormous overhead. Think packaging, marketing campaigns, logistics, and staffing. Meghan has been trying to hire a CEO to stabilize her company for months, but no one seems to want the job. For someone once seen as untouchable in the media, the fact that she can't even lock down leadership for her own company is telling. It signals to the industry that insiders don't believe in the brand enough to take the risk, which only reinforces the whispers that American Riviera Orchard is a sinking ship. What makes this worse is that Meghan herself hasn't done much to prove the brand's authenticity. Unlike the Kardashians, who live and breathe their products, Meghan isn't out here drinking her own wine, hosting events around it, or making it part of her daily image. Insiders joke that she spends more time curating baskets than actually using what's inside them. And in a culture that thrives on realness, that absence looks bad. It gives weight to the gossip that her brand isn't just drowning in debt, it's drowning in a lack of authenticity. And that's the cruel irony. Meghan thought her royal name would give her a shortcut in Hollywood's business scene. Instead, the one thing she's built outside the palace is now being whispered about as a failure. Kris Jenner didn't just leak a number, she shattered an illusion. Because once Hollywood starts talking about debt, the shine is gone, and rebuilding credibility becomes nearly impossible. Meghan might still post polished content, but everyone watching is now asking the same thing. If the brand was really thriving, why would Kris Jenner's whispers about $16 million in debt sound so believable? Why the Kardashians said, no thanks.
Well, I feel sorry for them because they're not. This is not a sustainable career for them. She was an actress. She used to get, if that's her, and it's a great thing to be an actress. Back in there. But she should at least. There's something she could do which will give them. They've got 40, 50 years of public life ahead of them. Just flogging overpriced jam.
For Meghan Markle, cozying up to the Kardashians probably seemed like the ultimate shortcut into Hollywood's top tier. Think about it. The family has the influence, the global reach, and the ability to turn just about anything into gold. If Kylie can make lip kits a billion-dollar empire, and Kim can turn shapewear into a household name, then imagine what a duchess could do with their stamp of approval. That was Meghan's dream. But here's the reality. The Kardashians looked at her brand, her moves, and her reputation, and said a very firm, no thanks. The truth is, Kris Jenner doesn't let just anyone into her empire. Every alliance is a transaction. You bring something valuable to the table, they let you sit down. Meghan thought her royal title and global name recognition were enough. But Hollywood doesn't work on titles. It works on grind, credibility, and relevance. And that's exactly where Meghan fell short. While the Kardashians are posting, filming, and promoting nonstop, Meghan disappears between projects, expecting her name to carry the weight. That's not how this game is played. And Kris knows it better than anyone. Insiders say one of the biggest red flags for Kris was Meghan's lack of authenticity. The Kardashians may be accused of many things, but one thing they've mastered is selling their own products like they live and breathe them. Kim won't be seen without Skims. Kylie paints her face with her own lip kits. Khloe is constantly showing off good American. Meghan, on the other hand, hasn't been spotted casually drinking her own wine, hosting chic little tastings, or even faking a kitchen selfie with her brand front and center. And that silence is deadly. If she won't embrace her own product, why should anyone else? To the Kardashians, it screamed inauthentic, and that's the kiss of death in their world. Then there's the money problem. Kris allegedly took one look at the numbers floating around Meghan's company and saw more liability than opportunity. A brand reportedly weighed down with $16 million in debt isn't an asset, it's baggage. And Kris doesn't do baggage unless she's the one turning it into a storyline. Associating with Meghan could risk dragging the Kardashian name into a mess that doesn't benefit them. Why would Kris trade her family's spotless business machine for someone else's financial headache? The math just doesn't add up. And let's not forget the optics. Meghan already carries a polarizing image. Half the world thinks she's a bold, misunderstood disruptor. The other half thinks she's calculating, desperate, and fake. For the Kardashians, whose brand thrives on carefully crafted narratives, aligning with someone so divisive was too risky. It could have been great drama, sure, but not the kind that adds value to their empire. Kris has built her brand by keeping her daughters in control of their stories. Meghan, on the other hand, looks like someone whose story is spiraling out of her hands. So in the end, the Kardashians didn't need to slam the door loudly. They just didn't open it. No partnerships, no tags, no invitations, just silence. And in Hollywood, silence isn't accidental. It's strategy. Meghan thought her title and polished baskets would buy her access. But Kris and her daughters made it clear. Influence isn't given. It's earned. And right now, Meghan simply doesn't measure up.
Somebody from Netflix has said, well, I've got a weird idea. What if we help you manage not only this new television show that we're producing and distributing, but hand in hand, your lifestyle?
Meghan's Hollywood strategy falling apart. When Meghan Markle and Prince Harry stepped away from the royal family, the world expected them to become unstoppable power players in Hollywood. They had the fame, the sympathy, the Netflix deal, and an Oprah interview that shook the monarchy to its core. It should have been a golden ticket. But fast forward a few years, and Meghan's Hollywood game plan is unraveling in full view. What was supposed to be a carefully crafted strategy is now looking like a series of missteps, and Kris Jenner's quiet leak about her brand debt only poured salt in the wound. At first, Meghan's approach seemed simple: leverage her royal star power into media deals and lifestyle branding. The Netflix docuseries was billed as groundbreaking, but the buzz fizzled after the first few episodes. Spotify signed her up for a massive podcast deal, only to pull the plug after one underwhelming season. And her much-hyped American Riviera orchard brand, instead of becoming the next Goop or Skims, it's now whispered about as being buried in $16 million worth of debt. That's not growth, that's collapse. Each big launch makes headlines for a week, then disappears, leaving behind nothing but questions about her staying power. The problem isn't just failed projects, it's the inconsistency. Meghan jumps from activism to entertainment to lifestyle branding without ever fully committing. One month she's talking about mental health and feminism. The next she's handing out baskets of jam and wine to influencers, hoping for a tag. The inconsistency makes her look less like a visionary and more like someone flailing, trying anything to stay relevant. Hollywood loves ambition, but it punishes desperation. And right now, Meghan's moves scream desperation louder than strategy. And then there's the authenticity issue. In this town, authenticity sells. The Kardashians may be accused of being overexposed, but no one doubts they're fully invested in their brands. Meghan, however, seems disconnected from her own. She doesn't post about her products, doesn't integrate them into her lifestyle, and doesn't embody the brand she's trying to sell. It makes the whole thing look like a cash grab rather than a passion project. Kris Jenner knew it, and by letting those debt whispers out, she made sure everyone else knew it too. What makes all of this more brutal is how much Meghan's strategy relied on her name alone. She thought being a duchess would open every door in Hollywood, but the industry doesn't work that way. Royal titles may wow the public, but they don't mean much in Beverly Hills boardrooms. Deals here are based on numbers, consistency, and audience pull. Meghan's projects have shown flashes of interest, but none of the longevity required to survive in this cutthroat scene. And Kris's leak about debt confirmed what many already suspected. Meghan isn't bringing in the returns. The saddest part? Meghan probably believes she was on the verge of cementing herself as Hollywood royalty. But every move that was supposed to solidify her position has instead chipped away at her credibility. The Netflix projects didn't dominate, the podcast didn't last, the brand isn't thriving, and now her finances are being dissected by gossip blogs. It's the opposite of the power play she wanted. Instead of rising, her Hollywood strategy is crumbling, and the cracks are now too big to hide. The public turns cold.
Daily Mail has framed this as failure, but I think that this is a total win for Meghan Markle because Netflix has never done this before. So if this does fail, Meghan gets to point the finger at Netflix.
When Meghan Markle first broke away from the royal family, the public couldn't get enough of her. She was the brave outsider who stood up to the establishment, a modern woman challenging outdated traditions. The Oprah interview had people glued to their screens, hanging on her every word. For a while, she was untouchable. A global figure with sympathy, intrigue, and a story that felt larger than life. But fast forward to now, and the tide has shifted. Instead of admiration, Meghan is facing fatigue. People are rolling their eyes at her, mocking her moves, and treating her like just another celebrity chasing clout. The magic is wearing off, and that's dangerous in a place like Hollywood. The truth is, the public can only stay invested in a storyline for so long before they want something new. Meghan's narrative, a pressed Duchess fights back, was powerful at first, but it hasn't evolved. Every project she touches somehow circles back to the palace drama, the victimhood, the same grievances told in slightly different words. At first, it felt raw and shocking. Now it feels recycled. Audiences aren't leaning in anymore. They're tuning out. Even her fans on social media, who once defended her like warriors, are starting to admit that they're tired of hearing the same story on repeat. Then there's the issue of delivery. Meghan's brand of activism and lifestyle content has been called polished to the point of being sterile. The Kardashians may be messy, but at least they're real in their chaos. Meghan, by contrast, comes across as curated, controlled, and out of touch. When her wine baskets went viral, instead of excitement, the reaction was mockery. TikTok filled with parody videos, gossip blogs tore it apart, and even her loyal supporters struggled to spin it as a win. The same thing happened with her podcast, praised initially, but eventually criticized as bland and uninspired. Meghan's brand isn't landing anymore, and that disconnect is why the public is cooling off. Kris Jenner's leak about Meghan's alleged $16 million brand debt only fueled the fire. Suddenly, it wasn't just about bad optics, it was about credibility. People started asking how someone with so much privilege and access could be so bad at building a brand. And the whispers made it worse. Meghan looked not just desperate, but financially unstable. In Hollywood, that's blood in the water. Once the public smells weakness, they stop rooting for you and start watching for your downfall. And that's exactly what's happening now. Social media has turned on her too. The same platforms that once amplified her voice are now full of memes mocking her failures. Comments that used to gush with support now drip with sarcasm. Not even Kris Jenner can save her. One viral post joked after the leak. Others accuse her of being fake, of trying too hard, of lacking the work ethic that Hollywood respects. The shift is brutal because it's not loud outrage, it's cold disinterest. And in celebrity culture, being ignored is far worse than being hated. The saddest part? Meghan probably thought each new project would win the public back. The podcast, the docuseries, the lifestyle brand, each was meant to remind people why she mattered. But instead, every stumble only deepened the fatigue. The public has stopped seeing her as a disruptor and started seeing her as a try-hard. And in this business, once the crowd turns cold, it's almost impossible to heat them back up again. Meghan isn't being canceled loudly. She's being quietly frozen out. And that, more than any headline, shows just how far her star has fallen. So, what are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments below.